Hello and welcome back to Back Corner Comics. Today we're going to be talking about The Warlord by Mike Grell Omnibus Volume 1. So this is a DC book and it kind of, caught me off guard when I saw it in the solicitations I think a year ago, a little less than a year ago. I am familiar with Mike Grell. I know about Sable. I have most of that run in single issues that I've collected in 25-cent bins and stuff. I have not finished collecting them, so I haven't really given them a go in terms of reading all of them. I've read snippets and some panels and stuff, and I really liked Mike Grell's art style and his pulpy type of storytelling. And I didn't really know about the Warlord. I saw him in the Books of Magic omnibus, which I did a review of and an overview of. So I kind of had an idea of what he was, and I was familiar with the silhouette, this type of silhouette going on. And when the omnibus was coming out, I was like, I'll get that at some point. But then I saw, a lot of people complaining about, oh, it's newsprint and, it's like crappy paper and blah, blah, blah. Well, listen to me, guys. All right. I was excited about the newsprint. I bought this for the newsprint to really show DC that we want comics in newsprint again. And I think another recent release that was in newsprint is the G.I. Joe compendiums. And, I really love those releases. But here we have the Warlord Omnibus, and let's crack it open. I think this is a great release from DC. I have not read all of it, so I can't speak to the breadth of the content within it. I've read about 4 issues, and I really enjoyed it. It's like this really cool mix of Conan and a little bit of G.I. Joe because he's like a veteran, or not a veteran, but a soldier from the Air Force. But yeah, we'll get into it. So basically, the main character, the Warlord, essentially is this fighter jet pilot. He's flying one of those, I forget the name of it, but it's one of those stealth ships, and he's gathering intel on Russia, because of course he is. And let's look at the dust jacket real quick. But yeah, he's gathering intel on Russia, and his plane starts going down because he gets shot down. He thinks he's heading towards the horizon, but he's actually heading downwards into the earth. So this falls in line with a lot of the, theories of the inner civilizations of, that live in the crust of the world or whatever of the planet. So yeah, as you can kind of just tell right here, we're just gonna get into some really cool fantasy goggly goop, which I'm a big fan of. The art on board is fantastic. Something that's been said in a lot of these omnibus videos and a lot of the overviews and reviews is that DC is really stepping it up in terms of presentation, and I couldn't agree more. I think if this had come out a few years earlier, we would be looking at a blackboard with the Warlord embossed on it. But here we're getting amazing Mike Grell painted art. There's some sexiness, some devious villainy too, and then we're getting heroicism and all that fun stuff, all that Bronze Age good stuff, which everyone loves, I think, to a certain extent. The end papers here are a map of the world, which I think is called it's called like Skelelast or something like that. Very weird kind of name. So yeah, The Warlord by Mike Grell on his Volume 1. So as you can tell, we're getting some really good pulpy action going on immediately. There's a good introduction here by Mike Grell. He talks about how, the very inception of this story kind of started off as a daily strip, a daily adventure strip that would later, go on into evolve into this because, he switched it up last minute so that way he could own it because DC was not going to let him own the Warlord. It gets canceled because of some crappy editorial stuff going on, but then of course that gets figured out, and we end up with this. And I think it was into the 3rd issue where it got canned, and then he brought it back a year or so later in issue 4. And I totally recommend, if you get this, to read the introduction because it really sets the stage. But yeah, so this is the first issue of the Warlord, and it's very dynamic and very fun for the time. I've read a lot of Bronze Age stuff, but I've never read a lot of DC Bronze Age stuff. So If you have any recommendations when it comes to DC Bronze Age stuff, please let me know. I'm a big fan of Bronze Age, and it's a shame that I've never explored the DC Bronze Age, but alas, here we are. So, one of the benefits of publishing on newsprint is these kind of colors don't like blast your eyeballs out of their sockets because they're so saturated, you know? So, it really calms these colors down because these colors were meant to be presented on newsprint. I definitely recommend looking into Jose Villarrubias, who is a colorist, artist, you know, he does everything and he works in the comics field. He's currently working on the Richard Corbin library over at Dark Horse Comics, you know, remastering all those amazing titles from Corbin. And he talks about how, you know, these colors need to not be presented on slick, you know, nice fancy paper stock, but rather they need to go on to newsprint. And you can really see why with this release. I'm interested to see what he thinks about it. I have not seen him talk about it. At least I have not seen him talk about it yet. Maybe he did and I just missed it, but alas. Whatever, here we go. The Warlord, he kind of escapes his jet and survives. But this is really fun, you know? It's kind of like Conan. Like I said, it's like Conan meets G.I. Joe in a way. Um, you know, you have these primitive race of people who, you know, still have slaves, and so there's like this whole slave thing. Here is, you know, the main character becoming friends with slave. You know, I mean, he's black. I think they could have done a little better, but it is a comic of the Bronze Age. You know, look through more of the art here. Very fun. It's a fun read. It's been great so far. Last issue I left off was right here. It kind of hints at this modern control panel here in this like ancient castle type of thing. But I think Mike Grell's art is just fantastic. You know, his line work is really good. I don't know who his inker is here. I don't know if he's inking himself. Let's see. I think he is. Yeah, he's inking himself, so he knows exactly what he wants out of what he's drawing, and it really shows. You know, you get these nice, thick, bold, brush-like lines. So good, man. I'm looking forward to reading more of it. Oh, you heard that crack? Yeah, she's a little, you know, she's a little uh, crunchy, but that's just so freaking badass, dude. Oh man, look at that. Very excited to get more into this. I need to clear up some other stuff on my reading list. That's just gorgeous, wonderful, beautiful, etc. You know, he gets a dog companion. See, I'm looking at too much right now, guys. What's so cool about newsprint is this is only 500 pages in. You know, we just looked at. I just did a video on Books of Magic. I just recorded it, and it's like a 1,500 pages, and this is almost that size. But there's only like 700, 800 some pages here. Yeah, there's like 700 and something. Here's some back matter. We get some, you know, some cheesecake. Who doesn't like that? A paraglider. Man, this guy does it all, dude. The Warlord. Lots of original art. Holy cow. This is something that DC's also been doing too, is including a lot of original art within the back matter or like in between covers. Yeah, I think DC's really killing it right now, guys. I think whoever's in charge of putting this stuff out and organizing all this stuff is killing it. They're doing more to talk to the community and be with the community. I know that Omar just got like a list of all the books coming out up until like 2027, which is crazy, you know. So hopefully we get more books printed on newsprint. It's kind of like the main reason why I picked this up, because I wanted to show that there was an interest in reading comics printed on newsprint. And, you know, this is The Warlord by Mike Grell, Omnibus Volume 1. Looking forward to Volume 2. This is Back Corner Comics. Thank you for watching.